phone rang early in the morning while the woman was having her quiet breakfast. A worried voice told her about tiny kittens left alone by the roadside with no mother cat anywhere near them. She grabbed her rescue kit right away without waiting. The kit contained a carrier with soft towels, kitten milk, and wet wipes. This was not her first time saving animals, but each call still filled her with worry and hope. She knew that young kittens without their mother had very little chance of surviving, especially next to a busy road where many dangers awaited them. When she reached the spot, she saw them right away. They were small bundles of fur huddled together under a bush by the road, and their eyes were barely open. The woman walked slowly toward them, keeping her movements very gentle. Years of helping animals had taught her that sudden movements could scare them away, making rescue much harder. To her surprise, the kittens did not try to run as she came closer to them. Instead, their tiny heads turned toward her, and small mouths opened with silent cries that touched her heart deeply. The biggest kitten even took a wobbly step toward her, as if feeling safe with her nearby. This unusual trust made her wonder if someone had handled them before they were abandoned. She knelt down and carefully looked around for any sign of a mother cat. Sometimes people mistakenly rescue kittens when the mother is just away looking for food. She spent several minutes checking under nearby bushes and calling softly, but found no mother cat anywhere. The kittens had dirty, matted fur that suggested they had been alone for at least a full day. Their hungry cries and the absence of a protective mother made the choice very clear. These little ones needed help right away. With careful hands, she gently picked up the first kitten. It felt much lighter than she expected, which was a worrying sign that it needed water and food badly. One by one, she gathered all the kittens, checking each one as she placed them in the carrier. The smallest one seemed very weak, barely moving when touched. Time was running out for these abandoned babies. She could feel their fragile ribs through their thin fur, and their tiny bodies were cold to the touch. When she arrived at her rescue center, which was really just her home turned into a place for animals, she took the carrier straight to the special room she kept for new arrivals. This clean, warm space allowed her to check and care for them before they met her other animals. The rest of her house was full of life because over the years, she had taken in many cats and kittens who either stayed with her forever or waited for new homes. Every corner of her home told a story of rescue and recovery, from the special feeding stations to the cozy sleeping areas she had created for different animals. First things first, the kittens needed warmth and hydration. She prepared a heating pad wrapped in towels and set it to low, making a nest that would keep the kittens warm enough. Then she mixed special kitten milk, knowing that regular cow's milk could make kittens very sick. The formula had to be just the right temperature, not too hot or too cold. She used a small syringe rather than a bottle because it was better for very young kittens who might not know how to drink properly yet. She slowly fed each one, starting with the weakest. Each drop of milk was precious, and she watched carefully to make sure they were swallowing properly. The smallest kitten worried her most. While the others eagerly drank the milk, this one barely responded, taking only a few drops before turning away. She knew from experience that this kitten would need extra care and maybe a visit to the veterinarian. She made a mental note to call the vet the next morning if the kitten did not improve with the night feedings. For now, all she could do was offer small amounts of milk every 2 hours, hoping to see the kitten improve with steady care. She gently rubbed the tiny belly to help with digestion and kept checking for signs of improvement. Between feeding the new rescues, she took care of her other cats, all of whom showed interest in the newcomers. Some of her older rescue cats had become surprisingly helpful with kittens over time, almost acting like parent cats who helped clean and comfort new arrivals. However, she always kept new animals separate until a vet examined them, understanding the dangers of illness spreading through all her rescue animals. The quarantine room had everything needed for proper care while keeping everyone safe. By midday, she had established a routine with the kittens. Each feeding showed small improvements as they drank more milk and showed more energy. Even the smallest kitten had begun to perk up, accepting nearly a full feeding by the afternoon. After each meal, she gently cleaned them with a warm, damp cloth, doing what their mother would have done. This cleaning helped their digestion and helped them relieve themselves, which is something young kittens need help with. She was careful to clean around their eyes and ears, removing any discharge that could cause problems later. The afternoon brought another feeding time and more good signs. The kittens had started moving around more in their makeshift nest, even trying to play with each other in short bursts of energy. The smallest one still lagged behind but had definitely improved since morning, showing interest in its surroundings and trying to clean its paws. This was normal kitten behavior that showed increasing strength. Their little mews were getting stronger too, and they began to respond when she spoke to them softly. As evening came, she prepared for the night ahead, knowing sleep would come in short periods between feedings. She moved the carrier with the heating pad next to her bed, where she could easily hear any sounds of distress and respond quickly. Then she fed her other rescue cats their dinner, talking to them about the new kittens as she did so. Some of these cats had been with her for years, after other shelters thought they could not be adopted because of age or health problems. They formed the core family of her rescue work, keeping each other and her company. The older cats seemed to understand when new babies arrived and would often sit quietly near the quarantine room. The evening feedings went very well, with all kittens drinking eagerly now. She carefully weighed each one on a small kitchen scale, writing down the numbers to track their progress in the coming days. Even a small weight gain would be a good sign that they were getting proper nutrition. The smallest kitten had gained a tiny bit already, perhaps just from having more fluids in its body, but it was a hopeful sign nonetheless. She recorded everything in her notebook, including how much each kitten drank and any changes in their behavior. Between the late evening and midnight feedings, she spent time looking for potential foster homes that might help once the kittens were stronger. She knew several experienced foster caregivers who specialized in young kittens, providing the intensive care needed until adoption age. She also updated her rescue social media page with a short post about the new arrivals, being careful not to share too many details until after the vet visit confirmed their health. The rescue community was always supportive, and she often received offers of help and donations when word spread about new babies. The midnight feeding showed even more progress. All kittens now actively looked for the syringe when she approached, which was a big change from their weak state that morning. Their eyes, though still not fully open, followed her movements more alertly. The smallest one had even developed a tiny but mighty purr that vibrated against her hand as she fed it. This was one of the most rewarding sounds in rescue work. She could feel their tiny bodies getting warmer and more solid with each feeding. After this feeding, she allowed herself a slightly longer rest, setting the alarm for 3 hours later instead of 2. The kittens were stable enough now that they could go a bit longer between meals, and her own rest would ultimately help them too. As she fell asleep, the soft sounds of kittens breathing nearby mixed with the familiar presence of her other rescue cats curled at the foot of her bed. The house felt peaceful, filled with the quiet sounds of healing and recovery. The early morning feeding came too soon, but she woke up immediately when the alarm sounded. This time, she found the kittens already awake and moving, making small attempts to climb the sides of their carrier. Their increased activity was another good sign because kittens feeling secure enough to explore showed both physical and emotional recovery underway. Even the smallest one joined these explorations, though with less coordination than its brothers and sisters. They were starting to look like real kittens instead of the fragile bundles she had found by the road. As morning light began coming through the windows, she thought about the transformation that had occurred in less than 24 hours. Several tiny lives that might have ended beside a road were now on a path toward health and, eventually, loving homes. The day ahead would bring the vet visit and more intensive care, but the critical first part of the rescue had succeeded. These kittens had a fighting chance now. She felt grateful for the person who had called her and for her own ability to help these innocent creatures. The morning feeding showed the best results yet. All kittens actively competed for the syringe, showing normal hunger and feeding behaviors. Their bodies felt warmer and more solid, less like the fragile shells she had collected from the roadside. After feeding, she watched with satisfaction as they curled together in a tight pile, naturally seeking the comfort of each other as they dozed off. This natural behavior was so different from their frightened huddle under the bush and confirmed what she already felt. The rescue had come just in time. As she made breakfast for herself and her other rescue cats, she felt the familiar mix of tiredness and fulfillment that came with successful rescue work. The sleepless night and worry had been worth every moment. Later, she would face questions about space limitations, adoption possibilities, and growing vet bills, which were the practical challenges that every independent rescuer faces. But for now, she allowed herself to enjoy this moment of pure success. Several tiny heartbeats continued in the world because she had answered a call and taken action. The kittens slept peacefully in their carrier, unaware of how their lives had changed from certain tragedy to hopeful future in the span of a single day. Outside, the morning sun lit up a world often uncaring about the suffering of its smallest creatures. But inside this house turned sanctuary, compassion had once again made all the difference. One rescue at a time, one day at a time, the woman continued her quiet mission of creating space for second chances and new beginnings in a world that desperately needed both. Every rescue reminded her why this work mattered and gave her strength to continue helping animals in need.